The weight of their words was suffocating. "You'll never make it," they said. "You're not good enough." Those words felt like stones, each one sinking deeper into my chest, leaving bruises that wouldn't heal. Every rejection, every sneer, every moment of doubt, it wasn't just criticism, it was a reflection of how the world viewed me. It felt like the universe had already decided my fate, telling me I wasn't worthy, that my dreams were too big and too foolish to ever come true. The athlete who stumbled, the student who failed, the worker who was passed over, they were all me. Every time I thought I had a shot, every time I believed I could rise, I was knocked down again. The failures kept stacking up, like the universe itself was playing a cruel game, pushing me back, just as I thought I was making progress. I remember those moments, sitting in silence, the weight of the world crushing down on me. I watched as others around me succeeded, seemingly without effort, while I struggled to even stay afloat. I wanted to scream, to break free from the suffocating weight of their doubt, but all I could hear was the echo of their words. It was like being trapped in a place where no one cared, no one believed in me. I was surrounded by people, yet I felt completely alone in my struggle. The world had written me off, and in my darkest moments, I almost believed it too. But somewhere deep inside me, buried beneath the pain, the hurt, and the overwhelming pressure, I found something. It wasn't a grand revelation, it wasn't some magical moment. It was just a small flicker, a fire that had been ignited by their doubt, their disbelief. They thought their words would break me, that their rejection would make me give up. But instead it did the opposite. It fueled me. I wasn't going to just prove them wrong, I was going to show them something they never expected. No matter how many times they tried to bury me, I would rise from those ashes, stronger than they could ever imagine. This wasn't just about proving my worth to them, it was about proving my worth to myself. And with that realization, everything began to change. It didn't happen overnight. No, this was a slow burn, a battle that lasted far longer than I ever expected. There were days when I wanted to quit, when the pain felt too much to carry. I'd sit in the quiet of my room, the weight of my failures bearing down on me, wondering if it was all worth it. Those days were dark, suffocating, and I could feel the doubts creeping in, whispering that maybe I wasn't cut out for this, maybe the world was right. When every door I knocked on slammed shut, when the hours of practice felt wasted, when the dreams I had seemed impossibly far out of reach, those were the moments that truly tested me. The moments that nearly broke me. I remember staring at the ceiling, trying to hold back tears, wishing for a sign, for a breakthrough, but it felt like nothing was ever coming. I questioned everything, my worth, my abilities, even my purpose. Every setback felt like a heavy blow, and I wasn't sure how many more hits I could take. But instead of falling apart, I began to fight back. Something inside me shifted. I realized I could either let their doubt crush me, or I could use it to fuel me. I didn't let their words define me. I let them ignite something in me. Every insult, every "you'll never make it," became a spark, a reason to push harder. The struggle, the hardship, the pain, it wasn't punishment. It was part of the process. I began to understand that every failure wasn't a sign of my inadequacy. It was a lesson, a stepping stone. I realized that every time I fell, I wasn't being buried. I was being built. The more they tried to knock me down, the more I rose, like the pressure building diamonds from coal. It wasn't easy, and the road wasn't straight. There were still days I doubted myself, still days when I thought maybe I wasn't cut out for this. But each time I faced that dark moment, I remembered why I started. I wasn't fighting to please anyone else. I was fighting for myself, for the person I knew I could be. And so I kept pushing, through the exhaustion, through the pain, through the fear, because I knew now that it was the struggle that made me stronger, the setbacks that would shape my victory. At first, it was just small victories, so small that no one else noticed, but they meant the world to me. It wasn't about the big, grand moments that everyone could see. It was the quiet wins, the ones that only I knew mattered. Like the first time I finished a race, even though I knew I wasn't going to win. The finish line wasn't where the victory truly was. It was in the fact that I didn't give up, that I kept pushing, even when my body begged me to stop. That moment, small as it seemed, was proof that I was capable of more than I had ever given myself credit for. Then, there was the first time I got a B on an exam, when I had failed every single one before. It wasn't an A, and it wasn't perfect, but it was progress. For the first time, I could see the fruits of my labor, all the late nights, the extra hours of studying, the perseverance, when everything inside me screamed to quit. That B was a sign that I was improving, that my efforts were finally paying off. But it wasn't just about the grade. It was about the realization that I could do hard things, that I was capable of success, even when the odds were stacked against me. And then there was the first time someone looked at me differently, like they were starting to see something they hadn't seen before. It was a quiet moment, nothing dramatic, but the look in their eyes said it all. For the first time, I wasn't just the person who always fell short, the person who couldn't keep up. I was someone who had overcome something, someone who had fought through the struggle. It wasn't validation from the world that I was looking for. It was a shift in how I saw myself. That moment, that one glance, was all I needed to know that I was on the right path. I didn't win every battle, but I never lost the war. Even when I stumbled, even when it felt like the world was pushing against me, I kept going. The doubt, the mockery, it made me stronger. Every time they told me I wasn't good enough, every time they laughed at my ambitions, it only pushed me to prove them wrong. It was as if their negativity became the fuel that ignited my drive. The deeper they pushed me, the higher I climbed. It was in the struggle that I found my strength, and with each challenge, I grew stronger, faster, better. The victories were no longer defined by the outcomes of my battles, but by the resilience I found within myself to keep fighting, to never give up. The path I was on wasn't easy, and it wasn't always clear, but I knew that each step forward was a step closer to the person I was meant to become. I wasn't just fighting to prove others wrong anymore. I was fighting for the life I knew I deserved. The struggle became my rhythm. I learned to dance with the pain, to find the beat in the hardship. It was no longer something I feared. It was something I embraced. Each setback, each obstacle, only made me more determined, more focused, more unstoppable. And with every challenge, I grew stronger, faster, better, until one day, I realized that I wasn't the same person who once doubted themselves. I was someone who had become something greater, someone who had turned struggle into strength. And that, in itself, was a victory. And with each step forward, I felt the distance between me and the person I used to be growing wider. It was as if I was shedding a skin that no longer fit, leaving behind all the self-doubt, the fear, the insecurity. Those who doubted me, who told me I'd never amount to anything, became a distant memory, fading away in the rearview mirror of my journey. But even though they were no longer physically present, their voices still echoed in the back of my mind. And instead of being a source of fear, that echo became a reminder of everything I had overcome, a marker of how far I had come. Their doubt was no longer my enemy. It was my motivator. In the beginning, their words had cut deep, but now every "you can't do this" became a battle cry in my head. Watch me. Each insult, each dismissal fueled the fire inside me, pushing me to prove that I was capable of more than they ever imagined. It wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself that I had the strength to rise above every obstacle, every setback. Every mistake, every failure, every rejection didn't stop me. It taught me. In those moments of struggle, I learned more about myself than I ever could have in times of success. I learned that failure wasn't the end. It was simply a lesson, a stepping stone. Each mistake was an opportunity to adjust, to grow, to improve. I understood that success wasn't a straight path, but a series of winding roads, some smooth, some rocky, but all part of the journey. I found that every time I thought about quitting, it was a signal to dig deeper. The harder the challenge, the more determined I became. When I wanted to give up, I pushed through, knowing that the only way to truly fail was to stop trying. Each step forward was not just progress. It was a triumph over the fear and doubt that once held me back. And slowly, over time, I began to believe in myself in a way I never had before. I wasn't just the person who was constantly beaten down. I was someone who had found strength in the struggle. I had stopped waiting for validation from others and started validating myself. And in that shift, I found the power to keep going, no matter what the world threw at me. Because now I knew that the only thing standing between me and success was my own will to push forward. And then the victories started to come. They were small at first, so small that no one but me could see their true significance. But to me, they were everything. Each victory felt like a declaration to myself and to the world. I'm not finished yet. I wasn't just overcoming challenges. I was rewriting my story, crafting a narrative where failure didn't define me, where setbacks weren't the end, but the beginning of something greater. It wasn't easy. There were moments where I questioned whether those small wins really mattered. But deep down, I knew they were the foundation of everything I would eventually become. I began to see the surprise in people's eyes when they realized I wasn't who they thought I was. They couldn't believe what I was becoming, couldn't fathom how I had gone from the person they had written off to someone who was standing strong in the face of adversity. They saw me as a failure once, a lost cause, but now they were watching me build something they never thought possible. I wasn't the failure they had written off. I wasn't the one who would crumble under pressure. I was someone who had refused to give up, someone who had fought through every setback and come out stronger, more resilient. Every challenge I faced, every time I felt like I couldn't go any further, I found a way to rise. Slowly, piece by piece, I rebuilt myself. And with every small victory, I gained more strength, more clarity, more confidence. And as I stood taller, the weight of their doubt became a faint memory, lost in the noise of my own success. The whispers that once threatened to drown me now seemed distant, like echoes from another lifetime. Their opinions no longer held any power over me. What mattered now was what I had built, what I had become. I wasn't defined by their expectations or their disbelief. I was defined by my journey, by the strength I had discovered within myself. The victories, both big and small, became my armor. I wore them proudly, not to boast, but to remind myself of how far I had come. And with every new success, I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer the person they had doubted. I was someone who had fought for everything, someone who had turned the odds in their favor. And with that realization, I knew that I was just getting started. But it wasn't just the victories that changed me. It was the way I changed. The victories, while important, were merely a reflection of something deeper that had shifted inside me. I no longer sought their validation. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had learned how to validate myself. For so long, I had lived in the shadows of others' opinions, hoping for a glimpse of acknowledgement, trying to measure my worth by their standards. But as I grew, I realized that the only validation that mattered was the one I gave myself. I stopped looking for external praise to define my success, and instead, I began to recognize my own achievements, no matter how small they seemed to others. I began to walk into rooms with my head held high, not because I had something to prove to them, but because I knew my worth. I didn't need to explain myself or justify my actions. The confidence I carried wasn't arrogant or boastful. It was quiet, unwavering, and rooted in the knowledge that I had fought for this. The same people who had once mocked me now watched silent as I moved forward with a confidence that came from knowing I had earned every step. And in that silence, I found peace. The moment I realized I had surpassed their expectations wasn't just about achieving success. It was about knowing I had finally become the person I always knew I could be. It wasn't about making them regret doubting me or watching them eat their words. No, the true victory was realizing that I had broken through my own limits, pushing past the person I once was, and embracing the strength that had always been buried within me. It was about proving to myself that I was capable of more than I ever believed. I had spent so long listening to others tell me what I could and couldn't do, defining my worth based on their expectations. But standing there in the light of my accomplishments, I saw that the only measure of success that mattered was the one I set for myself. Every rejection, every failure, every tear, it all led to this. Each setback had been a stepping stone, each disappointment a lesson learned. All the moments where I felt like giving up, when I thought the weight of the world was too much to bear, were the moments that built me into who I am now. Every bit of pain, every struggle had been necessary for my growth. Standing at the summit of my journey, I could finally see the bigger picture. The pain, the struggle, it was all worth it. The path wasn't easy, but it was mine, and I didn't need anyone else's approval to know that. In that moment, I understood something powerful. Success wasn't defined by others' opinions, but by the relentless pursuit of my own potential. But what I realized next was the most important lesson. The victory wasn't just in the destination. It was in the journey, the pain, the suffering, the moments of doubt that forced me to push harder, to grow stronger. It was those difficult moments, the times when I questioned everything, that shaped me. Every time I felt like giving up, I kept going. Every time I stumbled, I got back up. I learned that failure wasn't the end, it was part of the process. Each fall taught me resilience, and every time I rose again, I became a little stronger, a little wiser. The journey wasn't easy, but it was necessary. It was the test that challenged me, stretched me, and made me realize how far I could go. And in the end, it wasn't the success I had that mattered most. It was the strength I found in myself along the way. The journey wasn't just about reaching the finish line. It was about discovering who I truly was. It was about learning that success wasn't handed to me. It wasn't something that was just going to show up. It was something I had to fight for. The world didn't make space for me. I made my own space. And that was the key. I stopped waiting for permission. I stopped hoping someone would notice me or give me a chance. I created my own opportunities. I carved my own path, even when the road was filled with obstacles. I learned that the world might not always support me, but I didn't need its approval to succeed. And in doing so, I became unstoppable. The fire inside me, the one that was ignited by every doubt and rejection, fueled me forward. I wasn't driven by the need to prove anyone wrong anymore. I was driven by the knowledge that I had the power to define my own destiny. The journey had made me stronger, and the lessons I learned along the way had become my foundation. Now, I knew that no matter what came next, I had the strength to face it. I had fought for my place, and nothing would stand in my way. And now, standing at the peak of what I've achieved, I know that this is only the beginning. I've climbed mountains, faced down every fear, and conquered obstacles I once thought insurmountable. But as I stand here, I don't feel like I've reached the end. Instead, I feel a fire inside me burning brighter than ever. I know there will be more obstacles ahead, more setbacks, more times when the world will try to knock me down. But this time, I'm ready for them, because now I know who I am. I've seen the depths of my strength, and there's nothing left to doubt. I've faced the worst and come out on top, and now nothing can stop me. I know what I'm capable of. I'm not just capable of surviving the challenges life throws at me. I'm capable of thriving because of them. Every time I'm pushed to my limit, I rise. Every time they think they've broken me, I become more unbreakable. The world may think it can slow me down, but I've learned that setbacks aren't defeats, they're lessons. And with each lesson, I grow stronger, wiser, and more determined. I've unlocked a power within myself that I never knew existed, and now I'm unstoppable. And if anyone doubts me, let them watch, because I've only just begun. I'm not just moving forward, I'm charging ahead. With every ounce of strength I've built over all these years, I will rise again, no matter what the world throws my way. The world tried to break me, but in the end it only made me stronger. It shaped me into someone who doesn't fear the future. It prepared me for anything that's coming, and I'll face it all with the same determination that's brought me this far. And that's just the beginning. The best is yet to come. I know it. I feel it in every fiber of my being. I've only scratched the surface of what I'm capable of. and there's a long road ahead. But this time, I'm walking it with confidence, with purpose, and with the certainty that nothing, absolutely nothing, can stand in my way. The world may have tried to break me, but it only made me stronger, and I'm ready for whatever comes next. The best is yet to come.